Hello and welcome to Explore Classroom. My name is Anastasia Cronin, broadcasting to you live from Washington, D.C. I'm so excited to have you join us today. At National Geographic, we believe that anyone can be an explorer and that you have the power to make a difference in the world, no matter how old you are. Explore Classroom is here to inspire you with stories from the field and connect you with our National Geographic explorers live to answer your questions. This month, our theme is wildlife, from tiny fish that live deep in the ocean to big bears that live high on mountains. Animals across the globe need our help to make sure they are protected. Today, our National Geographic is the amazing Mélanie Wenger, joining us today from Paris, France. Mélanie is a documentary photographer who takes beautiful photos and combines them with short stories to help people connect with animals and learn how to respect them. Today, Mélanie will share how social media can have an impact on wildlife in ways that you might not expect. She'll also tell us more about what we can all do to protect endangered species, which are animals that could soon disappear from the planet if we don't look after them. Before we get into today's lesson, I'd like to welcome our viewers who join us from around the globe. We're going to give a few special shout outs. Boonesbury Elementary, welcome. Henry W. Owen School, Holy Trinity School, 20 Wells, Lakeland Charter Academy, Leverett Elementary School, and all the homeschools out there. We are thrilled to have you all here. And with that, let's get this Explore Classroom started. It's time to turn it over to Mélanie to share all about how she uses stories to help protect endangered wildlife. Take it away, Mélanie.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see you all today. Thank you for having me, and thanks for connecting today. So I'm Mélanie Wenger. I am French, and I'm a visual storyteller. So what does that mean? I create stories with photography and videography, and we publish them with National Geographic and other magazines. I am a National Geographic contributor for the magazine and for other channels of National Geographic, but I'm also a National Geographic explorer. And today I'm going to share with you a little bit how I make the stories and how I make them happen. So you will have a little bit of an access to the backstage of the stories that we publish. I'm going to share my screen because I wanted to talk to you about this story about African penguins that I did for National Geographic. And I'm going to show you how we built the story and the whole backstage of that. Just a minute for me to share my screen. Here you go. I hope you're all seeing that. Yes, fantastic. So I wanted to talk to you about the African penguins. Just for a starter, I wanted to explain, you might know the emperor penguins, that there are these very big penguins with the neck being a bit yellow or orange. And what I want to talk to you about today is a different subspecies of penguins that you might not know, and they are the African penguins. So they are slightly smaller and they are just black and white. You can see them on this screen that I'm sharing today. So I wanted to develop a story on the African penguins that are small colonies. There are very few of them, and they actually live in South Africa. I hope everybody knows where South Africa is. If you don't, just look at the map. South Africa is at the very bottom of the African continent. You can see the little yellow hand showing the country there. And on the right map, you can see in blue where the African penguins are actually living. There are very few of them, and there are fewer and fewer because they are an endangered species. To speak about the impact that we humans have on the African penguins and why they are endangered, I wanted to tell the story of one colony, one specific colony. That specific colony lives in Cape Town, that is right at the end of South Africa, where the Little Hand, remember, was. And it's called the Boulders Beach colony. So there are 986 pairs of African penguins living in the Boulders Beach colony. That is a colony that has settled very, very close to humans and very, very close to houses and a village that is near Cape Town, which is kind of not really usual for wild animals, but they went there to find a sort of refuge. So we wanted to tell their story and show how their interaction with humans are also creating some distress with them, and show how humans should behave with them to leave them a little bit in peace. So we are in South Africa near Cape Town and Boulders Beach more specifically, and we wanted to meet those African penguins to tell their stories. You have to know that actually a lot of people want to see penguins, and it's actually possible to see them when you go to Boulders Beach and near Cape Town in South Africa. The problem is that a lot of people want to see them, but a lot of people can be put a bit of pressure on the African penguins. So for now, what I wanted to show and to tell with this story was to show all these people coming and what they were doing there while they were meeting the penguins. So I started to work on this story in 2019. So remember, 2019, that was before COVID, and I started to see all these stories coming to meet the penguins that you can see on this picture. There are boardwalks, so you don't get too close to the penguins, but there are a lot of them. I want to see them. Of course, you understand, right? Me too. I wanted to see them. I was curious. Wouldn't you be? So it was amazing. You could really see them and get close to them. Some of the people were getting a little bit too close because they wanted to take selfies. They wanted to take selfies to post on social media and get the closer possible to the penguins for those selfies. So I realized that there were a lot of people posting, and majorly it was on Instagram, pictures of them and selfies with the penguins. As you can see here, there are a lot of different posts saying how great it is to get close to them, trying to do all different kinds of selfies. It sounds cool, right? Well, actually, there's a little problem with that. The first problem using social media is that posting those pictures is showing that you can have a behavior and get very close to those African penguins. It seems harmless because they are there, they are not really responsive, and they look funny. So you think it's okay. And I thought so too. But the problem is it's actually kind of harmful to be so close to those African penguins because they are wild animals. And wild animals are not really used to interact with humans. And being close to them caused them a little bit of distress. So as I told you, I started to work in 2019. And then COVID happened. When COVID happened, the tourists stopped to come to South Africa because the world was completely closed. So it gave me an opportunity to document how the world would be for the African penguins without the tourists. And so I decided to document how the penguins were evolving when the tourists were not there. So in the houses next to the colony, I settled there and I watched. I saw that a bunch of those small penguins had decided to settle in the gardens of the villas that were near their colony. They settled their nests, so there are a couple for each nest, and they started to nest there and wait for their chicks to get born. I wanted to leave them a little bit in peace. So what I did was that I created camera traps. So what is a camera trap? It's not an actual trap, don't worry. It's just, we call it like that because we want to catch some pictures. So it's more a camera catching pictures, and we are not actually trapping any penguins. So we actually put a camera like this. Let me show it to you. On a little tripod with a little detector. We put it in their nest, like around their nest, for a very long time, day and night. And the capture is actually telling the camera when there is a movement. That way, the camera takes pictures every time that there is a movement. So it takes alone pictures of the penguins. That was the story for us to understand how they live without actually being present and show you the amazing pictures of the penguins. While I was doing that, I was living in one of those houses, waiting and being a bit outside of the camera traps, waiting to check every day what the cameras had trapped, what pictures were made. Every night, I was leaving the house open, and I realized that the penguins were coming to visit me in the house. So they kind of were like retaking their land, sort of. And they kind of invaded the human space and my space as well. And so I watched them very slowly go around, like in this video. You can see one of my penguin friends entering the house and visiting. Try to stay very far from them and try to use sort of a stick to follow them without being too close, because being too close would have caused a sort of distress. You can see that he's visiting quietly. And he went to the children's room, said hello to the bear, just checking if he was alive, and went along with his business. So they were doing that every night. It was quite amazing. So I realized that they were a little bit more chill when humans were not there. And so I wanted to show this side of the story as well, and to share with you guys and to share also with the readers of the magazine how we humans were actually affecting this wild species. I don't think you can access the sounds, but I'm going to tell you how I did it, how I managed to tell the story. Of course, because you can't provoke so much distress when you tell the story. As I explained, we were using camera traps not to get too close. I also had to figure out another way to photograph them without being actually physically present. And the African penguin actually spends half of its time underwater. So to get pictures of them underwater, I had to figure out a way to not be physically there, but get some pictures. So with my team, we started to dive and we started to observe the penguins and to see where they were going every day, to put another camera trap, as I told you, not to trap them, but just to catch them and take pictures, but underwater. And those camera traps and detectors don't work underwater. So we had to figure out a way. So we were diving with swimsuits and with wearing this to not be too cold, because the water in South Africa, it's an ocean, it's very, very cold. And we were going by boat with the camera. So I want to explain to you very quickly a little thing. So as I told you, it's very important not to get too close, to not create distress to the wildlife. These penguins are very skittish. Underwater, they are even more skittish because a lot of predators are looking for them. And so there is an advice that you can also apply all the time, you and me, is to stay a bit further from the animals. There is a bit of a difference between the wildlife that you can encounter around your house, like, for example, squirrels that are more used to humans and living around humans, and the other wildlife, such as African penguins. The basic guideline and the basic rule to keep is to always stay 10 feet away from wildlife. That guarantees that they're like a bit more relaxed. You don't create distress on the animal. To give you a little bit of an idea, 10 feet is actually the height of a basketball goal. So you can see that it's some sort of distance. So that would be my first tip, and that I learned myself. How you can treat them and respect them at the same time would be to keep your distance. So watch out when people invite you to go to wildlife giving rides or performance or posing with animals, with wildlife. Most of the time, it's not that good for them. The other thing to keep in mind is also to have an idea of when you are posting photos on Instagram, there is a little bit of an impact on wildlife and on that colony, for example, the African penguins. With posting those penguin selfies, it's just encouraging other people to go and make a selfie, even if it's not really allowed. It makes you think that it's okay because everybody is doing it, but it's very bad for them. And that is something that's not very well known. And we created this story specifically to let you know and to let everybody know, myself included, how we should behave with wildlife to make them feel like they have their space. So just a little bit more about the story before we end this presentation. The other part of the story was also to explain the underwater life of the penguins, because it's very unknown and because we humans have a bit more difficulties than the penguins to go underwater. So as I told you, we figured out a way to put an underwater trap. And we were also working with scientists that were putting some trackers that you can see on top of that penguin that looks a little bit like an astronaut penguin. And they were putting trackers and they were letting them go away like for the day, doing their day. And they were watching where the penguins were going to fish. And in that way, they can learn also where the penguins find their food. So do you know what the penguins eat? They eat small pelagic fishes, which is basically sardines. Everybody knows, and we also eat sardines, right? So the problem is that we eat sardines and the penguin eats sardines. And we eat a lot of sardines. So there's not many sardines left for the penguins. So that is also why the penguin is starting to be endangered, because he doesn't find food as he used to find. The scientists wanted to know where he was finding his food, so he could protect that area from the fishermen, and so we could leave a little bit of sardines to the penguins for them to find their food. So we're back on land. To document that part of the story, we figured out where the penguins were going to fish every day. And we watched them every day. And so we decided that we were going to take a boat and that we were going to put a camera attached to a bag of sand and that we were going to put it underwater where the penguins were going to fish. Here we are in front of the colony where they are actually going to start to go in the water to go to fish. And we are going to put a camera, if you watch well the video, in the channel where they go to fish. It's very early in the morning and we are going to put it just before they go to fish and leave it there for 2 hours. And the camera is going to take one picture every 2 seconds there. And we are going to take back the camera just after the 2 hours and do that every day. And then we're going to watch all these pictures and see what we get to see the African penguins underwater, which we can't see if we are a human. This is how we do. We are underwater. Oops. And after 15 days of doing that every day, we got a picture of the penguin underwater, going very fast without us being actually there. So this story with that photo and all the other photos was then put together, and there was a reading story from a writer that was a South African writer, and published then on the National Geographic online magazine. This is how we got to tell the story and explain to people how to behave and the story of this little colony of African penguins. So thank you so much for listening to me. This ends my presentation, but I'm here with any kind of answers from your questions. I'm listening.
That's great. Melanie, I'm sure you have inspired so many young people to become either wildlife biologists or storytellers just like you. So we'll see many of you in the magazine, National Geographic magazine, in a few more years. We do want to say thank you again to you, Melanie, and all of the students and teachers watching. We hope that you join us for many more of our Explore Classroom events. Our next event for ages 3 to 8 will be on Monday, May 8th with explorer Phoebe Griffith. Phoebe will be taking us underwater alongside some of the biggest predators that lurk in dark rivers. So go ahead and register for this event and more at natgeoed.org/Explore Classroom. You can request a chance to be featured on screen like some of our classes today. And fellow teachers, we've also created a new interactive guide for you to share with your students to take them on a learning journey with each of our special guests. Find the Explorer Mindset in Action Guide and Teacher Edition linked on each and every event registration page. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Stay curious and keep exploring. Thank you.